a food handling, sanitation, and work safety course designed for food service establishment operators and frontline food service workers such as cooks, servers, bussers, dishwashers, and deli workers. The course covers important food safety and worker safety information including foodborne illness, receiving and storing food, preparing food, serving food, cleaning and sanitizing.
Contents. FOODSAFE Program Overview. 1. The causes of foodborne illness. 2. Microbes and foodborne illness. 3. Food safety plans and HACCP. 4. Food handler health and hygiene. 5. Receiving and storing food safely. 6. Preparing food safely. 7. Serving food safely. 8. Cleaning, sanitizing, and pest control. 9. Premises requirements. A. Canadian Government Agency responsibilities. B. Foodborne illness chart. C. Oysters and raw shellfish, handle with care. D. Food thermometers. E. Sanitizing solutions. F. Best practices for preventing allergic reactions.
This section gives an overview of FOODSAFE Level 1. We'll talk about working in a culture of food safety and why it is important for all food service workers to practice safe food handling. We'll also talk about the roles and responsibilities of owners, operators, and health authorities in keeping food safe. Learning outcomes. First, describe a culture of food safety. Second, describe a food handler's responsibility in protecting food from contamination. Third, identify applicable laws governing food safety and the authorities responsible for enforcement. Fourth, explain how to handle a foodborne illness complaint.
In a food service establishment that fosters a culture of food safety, everyone understands why certain procedures need to be followed. Whether you are an owner, manager, cook, dishwasher, or server, you know that the safety of the food the establishment is serving rests with you. Health Canada estimates that more than 4 million Canadians suffer from foodborne illness every year. Studies of foodborne illness outbreaks have identified several common mistakes that can happen at any step in the process of serving food to the public. Whatever your role in your food service establishment, there are safe food handling practices that you can follow to protect your health, your customers' health, the reputation of your establishment, and your job. Every jurisdiction in Canada has regulations that govern the safe production and sale of foods in food premises. These regulations describe how food premises must be constructed, how they are operated, what kind of food safety training is required for operators and staff, what types of equipment, utensils and surfaces must be used, sanitation procedures, and other factors that impact the safety of food served to the public. Each province and territory in Canada has its own regulations with respect to food safety in the food service industry. It is the role of the responsible health authority to protect public safety by ensuring that food service establishments meet the food safety requirements. Regulations represent the minimum standard to be maintained. Public health inspectors, FIs, and environmental health officers, EHOS, serve as consultants and educators for food safety as well as conducting inspections and enforcing regulations. The purpose of inspections is to make sure that food is being handled properly from receiving through preparation to serving, and that all regulatory requirements are being met. Handling a foodborne illness complaint. All customer complaints of possible foodborne illness must be taken seriously. Regardless of whether or not food served at your establishment is found to be the source of the illness, handling customers' concerns thoroughly and professionally demonstrates that your establishment values the safety of the food you serve. When a customer reports an illness that may have been caused by food served at your establishment, be polite and attentive. Record as much information as possible about the complaint on a foodborne illness report form. Encourage the customer to contact the local health authority. File and keep the original foodborne illness report, along with the health authority's inspection report once you receive it. Contact the local health authority yourself with the information you have recorded on the foodborne illness report form. If the customer is still sick when you speak with them, recommend that they contact a healthcare professional. Never attempt to diagnose the illness or suggest treatments. A foodborne illness report sheet can be found on the FOODSAFE.ca website. 1. The causes of foodborne illness. This unit describes 3 causes of foodborne contamination: chemical, physical and biological, and identifies improper food handling practices that can lead to foodborne illness. We'll also discuss how to reduce the risk of allergic reactions to the food we serve. Learning outcomes. First, give examples of chemical, physical and biological causes of food contamination. Second, identify major improper food handling practices that have caused foodborne illness outbreaks. Third, demonstrate an understanding of food allergies and list ways to reduce risk. 1.13 Causes of food contamination. Chemical. Some sources of chemical contamination include cleaning agents, pesticides and dissolved metals. Reduce the risk by storing chemicals away from food in properly labeled containers. Physical. Some types of physical contamination include glass, wood, hair, bandages, insects, metal particles and stones. Reduce the risk by practicing good hygiene, inspecting all incoming food, storing food away from possible physical contaminants, and by following proper pest control programs and equipment maintenance. Biological. Some sources of biological contamination include infected workers, contaminated work surfaces, cross-contamination, improperly washed dishes and surfaces, and contaminated water used in food preparation and dishwashing. Most cases of foodborne illness in the food service industry are caused by biological contaminants, so FOODSAFE Level 1 will focus on reducing biological risk. Learning how to handle food properly from receiving to serving, and making those safe food handling practices part of the culture of your food service establishment, can significantly reduce the risk of foodborne illness outbreaks. Improper food handling practices that have caused foodborne illness outbreaks. First, improper cooling. Second, advanced preparation. Third, infected food handlers. Fourth, improper reheating. Fifth, improper hot holding. Sixth, contaminated raw. Seventh, food or ingredient. Eighth, unsafe source. Ninth, use of leftovers. 10th, cross-contamination. 11th, inadequate cooking. 1.2. Food allergies and food service. Top 10 allergens. First, eggs. Second, milk. Third, mustard. Fourth, peanuts. Fifth, seafood, fish, crustaceans, shellfish. Sixth, sesame. Seventh, soy. Eighth, sulfites. Ninth, tree nuts, almonds, hazelnuts, cashews and many others. 10th, wheat. Health Canada priority allergens. Symptoms of allergic reaction. Respiratory, breathing, difficulty breathing, speaking or swallowing. Cardiovascular, heart, lightheadedness, dizziness, pale, blue color, weak pulse, fainting, loss of consciousness. Gastrointestinal, stomach, nausea, cramps, stomach pain, vomiting, diarrhea. Skin, hives, swelling, face, lips, tongue, itching, warmth, redness. Neurological, brain, anxiety, feeling that something really bad is about to happen, headache, confusion, disorientation. Many Canadians, 4 to 7%, are affected by a food allergy for which there is no cure. Strict avoidance of the food allergen is the only way for an individual with a food allergy to prevent an allergic reaction. Contact with an allergen, even a very small amount, can cause an allergic reaction that is life-threatening and is called anaphylaxis. Allergic reactions usually happen quickly, but some occur hours after exposure. Symptoms can vary and are unpredictable. Anaphylaxis requires immediate treatment with epinephrine and quick transportation to hospital by ambulance. If left untreated, anaphylaxis can cause death. The most dangerous symptoms of an allergic reaction are any difficulty breathing and a drop in blood pressure which makes a person feel lightheaded, dizzy or feeling like they may faint. If someone tells you that they are experiencing an allergic reaction, believe them. They are often aware of symptoms that you cannot see, and immediate attention and treatment can save their life. To help prevent an allergic reaction to foods served in your establishment, clear communication is vital. When a customer asks about ingredients, always check with the chef or designated individual at your restaurant to respond to these questions. If you cannot verify ingredients with absolute certainty, advise the customer that you are not sure. Never guess. Never substitute ingredients unless everyone is aware and the change is reflected on the menu. Remember that an ingredient can have many different names. For example, milk can also be labeled as casein, curds, delactosed whey, lactate, or whey. Also remember that some food items are made up of many ingredients that can contain allergens. For example, Worcestershire sauce can contain fish. Another common example is chocolate chips, which can sometimes contain tree nuts, milk, and peanuts. Always use separate utensils, cookware and cutting boards, and properly clean food surfaces, both front and back of house, to prevent cross-contamination of potential allergens. The safest option is to prepare meals for allergic customers, offline, using fresh ingredients in a separate and clean area of the kitchen. Additional information on food allergies and best practices for preventing allergic reactions can be found in Appendix F. We recommend you take a few minutes to review this information. 2. Microbes and foodborne illness. This unit focuses on biological causes of foodborne illness, defining and explaining 5 types of microbes and their sources, and describing how pathogens are transmitted to food. Learning outcomes. First, define microbe and pathogen. Second, give at least one example of each type of microbe and identify their sources. Third, explain how spores are produced and the significance of toxins. Fourth, list the 6 conditions under which bacteria can multiply, FATTOM. Fifth, identify the danger zone temperatures. Sixth, give examples of potentially hazardous foods. Seventh, describe the cycle of transmission. Eighth, give examples of direct and indirect transmission. Microbes are living things that are often too small to be seen without the help of a microscope. There are many different types of microbes, including bacteria, viruses, parasites, protozoa, and fungi. Some microbes are beneficial to us, such as some types of yeast, molds, and bacteria that produce foods like yogurt, cheese, sauerkraut, beer, and wine, and those that live in our intestines and help us digest food. Some microbes can cause illness and even death. These microbes are called pathogens, which means something that produces sickness. Bacteria are all around us. Most bacteria are harmless or even helpful to humans, but some can make us very sick. Pathogenic bacteria such as Campylobacter, E. coli, Listeria, and Salmonella that can live and grow in food are among the most frequent causes of foodborne illness. Viruses are smaller than bacteria and frequently cause illness. Viruses that are harmful to humans may be found in contaminated food, but will not grow in food. Hepatitis A and the norovirus are examples of viruses that are transferred from food handlers to food, often because of improper handwashing. Parasites live on or inside another animal or person and are dependent on the host for nutrients. Parasites such as trichinella might be found in undercooked pork or other meats, and roundworms might be found in raw fish such as sushi or sashimi. Protozoa are one-celled animals. An example of protozoa is Giardia lamblia that may be found in rivers, lakes, streams, and shallow wells. Giardiasis, one of the most frequent causes of non-bacterial diarrhea in North America, may be caused by washing produce in water contaminated with Giardia lamblia. Fungi grow on animals, plants, humans, decaying organic matter, in fact anywhere that is warm and damp. Many fungi are beneficial, but some fungi can spoil foods. It is important to remember that scraping or cutting mold off of food may not make the food safe. The mold may have produced toxins that will remain in the food. Some types of bacteria are able to produce a hard coating to protect themselves from stressful conditions such as extreme heat, dryness, cold, and chemicals. A bacterium with this protective coating is called a spore. Spores can survive high temperatures, drying, boiling, freezing, or even chemicals like cleaning agents and disinfectants. When conditions for bacterial growth improve, for example when cooked food containing the spores is removed from the heat and left at room temperature, the spore coating splits open and a normal bacterium emerges and begins to multiply in the food. Spores are a particular concern when food is cooked in advance, allowed to cool too slowly, and then served cold or improperly reheated later. Botulism example. Raw potato contains active Clostridium botulinum spores. Potato in airtight foil properly baked, Clostridium botulinum spores survive. Wrapped baked potato left in the danger zone for 4 hours, spores germinate, grow and produce toxins. Baked potato eaten, toxins cause botulism. When some bacteria multiply, they produce toxins which will make people sick when consumed. Some of these toxins may be destroyed by cooking, but others are heat resistant and will survive even high cooking temperatures. The production of toxins can be controlled by paying close attention to time and temperature when storing and preparing food. Foods that contain toxins may not look, smell or taste any different from uncontaminated food. 2.2 Factors that affect bacterial growth. FATTOM. First, food; second, acid; third, temperature; fourth, time; fifth, oxygen; sixth, moisture. 1. Food. Like any living organism, bacteria require food to survive. While some bacteria only need simple nutrients, others require a more complex diet, including protein. Moist foods that are rich in protein such as meat, milk, eggs and fish are good food sources to support the growth of pathogenic bacteria. 2. Acid. Bacteria do not grow in an acidic environment, so acidic foods such as lemons and lemon juice, vinegar, and some berries and fruits do not support the growth of bacteria. However, when low-acid foods such as vegetables, eggs, meats and soft cheese are prepared, special care needs to be taken to ensure that bacteria cannot grow. Acidity in foods and other substances is measured on a pH scale of 0 to 14, with neutral acidity being 7. The more acidic the food, the lower its number on the pH scale. Acidic sad face, 0 to 4.0, lemons 2.6 picohenries, vinegar 3.0 picohenries, apples 3.6 picohenries. Neutral, higher risk foods, 4.5 to 9.0, string beans 5.6 picohenries, broccoli 6.5 picohenries, fish 6.9 picohenries, milk 6.9 picohenries, meat 7.0 picohenries, eggs 7.3 picohenries, camembert 7.4 picohenries, lobster 7.6 picohenries. Alkaline, 10 to 14, baking soda 9.0 picohenries, tonic water 11 picohenries. 3. Temperature. The temperature range between 4 degrees Celsius and 60 degrees Celsius, 40 degrees Fahrenheit and 140 degrees Fahrenheit, is referred to as the danger zone, where harmful bacteria can multiply rapidly. Temperatures below 4 degrees Celsius or above 60 degrees Celsius will slow or stop bacteria growth. Temperature control is one of the best ways to reduce the risk of foodborne illness caused by bacteria. 100 degrees Celsius, 212 degrees Fahrenheit, boiling. Bacteria die. Spores and toxins may survive. 74 degrees Celsius, 165 degrees Fahrenheit, cooking and reheating. 60 degrees Celsius, 140 degrees Fahrenheit, hot holding. 4 degrees to 60 degrees Celsius sad face, 40 degrees Fahrenheit to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, danger zone, keep food out of this range. Bacteria multiply rapidly. 4 degrees Celsius, 40 degrees Fahrenheit, chilling and thawing, most bacteria survive but will not multiply quickly. 0 degrees Celsius, 32 degrees Fahrenheit, freezing. Most bacteria survive but will not grow. 18 degrees Celsius, 0 degrees Fahrenheit, STRORING frozen. 4. Time. Bacteria grow by multiplying. When a small number of pathogens are present in food, the risk is usually low. However, when higher risk foods are left in the danger zone, those pathogens multiply rapidly. Restricting the amount of time that foods are left in the danger zone will help to reduce the risk. 5. Oxygen. Aerobic bacteria require oxygen to grow. Anaerobic bacteria grow only when no oxygen is present. Most bacteria that can cause foodborne illness are aerobic. However, some very dangerous bacteria thrive only in anaerobic, oxygen-free environments. One notable anaerobic bacterium is Clostridium botulinum that causes botulism. When foods are improperly processed and then stored at room temperature in airtight conditions such as cans, bottles, vacuum packaging or immersed in oil, anaerobic spores may survive and grow. Vacuum packaging can help to extend the shelf life and quality of food by removing oxygen, but it is important to remember that some bacteria do not require oxygen for growth. Therefore, vacuum packaging does not eliminate the need for food to be kept at proper storage temperatures. Most vacuum-packed food must be kept out of the danger zone. This is particularly critical for foods such as luncheon meats and smoked fish that are often served without additional cooking. 6. Moisture. Bacteria need moisture to survive. Bacteria, yeast and molds grow rapidly. In food with a high moisture content such as meat, produce and soft cheeses, Dry, sweet or salty foods such as uncooked rice and pasta, crackers and candies have a lower moisture content and are less hazardous. 2.3 Potentially hazardous foods. Foods that have the FATTOM conditions to support the growth of pathogens or the production of toxins are considered potentially hazardous foods that pose a food safety risk if left in the danger zone for even short periods of time. Some examples of potentially hazardous food are meats and poultry, eggs and egg products, dairy products, fish and shellfish, cooked and cut up raw fruits and vegetables, and many processed foods. Cycle of transition of contaminants. There are three major parts in the cycle of transmission of contaminants: the food handler, and the environment. Some foods already contain pathogens. A good example is salmonella in raw chicken. Foods can also become contaminated by an infected food handler, or by environmental factors such as unclean work surfaces and utensils, insects and pests, or a dirty water or air supply, or by cross-contamination from some other contaminated food. Similarly, a food handler can become contaminated by touching or tasting contaminated food. The environment may be contaminated by both food handlers and contaminated food. The transmission of foodborne illness can be a vicious circle. Food handler, environment, food. Direct transmission occurs when microbes transfer directly from the source of contamination to food. For example, when contaminated raw meat juices drip onto fresh produce, or when an infected food handler coughs or sneezes onto food or touches the food with contaminated hands. To reduce the risk of direct transmission of foodborne illness, food handlers should always pay close attention to personal hygiene and proper food storage. Indirect transmission is also called cross-contamination, and occurs when there is an intermediate step between the source of contamination and the food. For example, cross-contamination might occur when a cutting board is used to cut up raw chicken and then is used again to prepare salads without being cleaned and sanitized. 3. Food safety plans and HACCP. This unit sets the context for the remaining units in FOODSAFE Level 1 by introducing food safety plans. FSP, emphasizing critical control points, CCPs, and explaining how a food handler can reduce the risk of contamination at each step in an FSP by following proper sanitation and food handling practices. Learning outcomes. First, describe the purpose of food safety plans. Second, define hazards, critical control points, CCPs, critical limits, monitoring actions and corrective actions. Third, give examples of CCPs for ready-to-eat foods and foods that will be cooked. Food service establishments should have written plans for the safe preparation of each menu item in the establishment. These plans are called food safety plans, FSP. Food safety plans are part of a hazard analysis critical control points, HACCP, program, a systematic approach to product safety that is widely used in the food industry. An FSP begins at the receiving and storage stage, when food enters the establishment, until the point when it is served to the customer. When all food handlers follow the FSPs for the foods served in an establishment, the risk of food contamination will be reduced. An FSP identifies hazards, critical control points, critical limits, monitoring actions and corrective actions. 3.1 Hazards. An FSP begins by identifying the possible biological, physical, and chemical hazards associated with each step in the preparation and serving of a menu item. In the food service industry, biological hazards are by far the most common type of hazard. Biological, physical, chemical. 3.2 Critical control points. In a food safety plan, a critical control point, CCP, is a point beyond which no further action can be taken to eliminate a hazard. In other words, a CCP is either a kill step, the step at which the hazard is eliminated, or a control step, the step at which the hazard is controlled. For foods such as raw meats, poultry, seafood and eggs, a CCP is the cooking step when the temperature of the food is raised to a high enough temperature to kill bacteria. For foods such as fresh salad ingredients or ready-made sandwiches, a CCP is the storage step when the food is stored away from potentially hazardous foods and at a temperature low enough to control bacterial growth. Kill step, control step. Critical limits. Critical limits are specific and measurable limits that indicate effective control of a critical control point. In the above examples, The critical limit for the cooking step is to cook meat to at least 74 degrees Celsius, and the critical limit for ready-made sandwiches is to store them at or below 4 degrees Celsius. 3.3 Monitoring actions. Monitoring actions are checks, measurements or observations that prove that the critical limit is met. These actions might include checking the internal temperature of hamburger patties at the end of the cooking time, or checking the temperature of the sandwich display cooler every 2 hours. Monitoring actions should be documented and accurate records kept. 3.4 Corrective actions. Corrective actions are procedures that should be followed when a critical limit has not been met. For example, if the internal temperature of a hamburger patty is only 62 degrees Celsius at the end of the cooking time, the corrective action is to continue cooking the patty until it reaches 74 degrees Celsius. Corrective actions should be documented and accurate records kept. 3.5 Sample food safety plans. Breakfast buffet items. Step: receiving. Hazard: biological, pathogen growth, toxins, parasites. Physical packing materials. CCP. N. Critical limit: received from an approved supplier. Temperature control during transport less than 4 degrees Celsius. Goods and containers in good condition. Monitoring action: ensure supplier is an approved source. Check temperature and condition of received foods. Corrective action: reject shipment if not from an approved source, or if temperature of the transport cooler and goods are over 4 degrees Celsius, or if packages are damaged. Step: storage. Hazard: biological, pathogen growth, toxins, parasites. CCP. N. Critical limit: store in cooler between 0 degrees Celsius and 4 degrees Celsius. Monitoring action: check cooler at least twice per day. Corrective action: if the cooler is above 4 degrees Celsius for less than 2 hours, transfer food to a working cooler that is below 4 degrees Celsius. If the cooler is above 4 degrees Celsius for more than 2 hours, discard food. Step: preparing. Hazard: biological, contamination from handlers. CCP. N. Critical limit: use clean hands or sanitized utensils. Do not work when sick. Monitoring action: visual observation, hands washed properly and frequently. Do not allow sick employees to handle food. Corrective action: modify procedure, provide sanitized utensils, discard contaminated food, send sick workers home. Step: cooking. Hazard: biological, pathogen survival. CCP. Y. Critical limit: cook food to 74 degrees Celsius. Monitoring action: measure and record temperature at the end of cooking. Corrective action: if food has not reached 74 degrees Celsius, continue cooking until it has reached 74 degrees Celsius. Step: hot holding. Hazard: biological, pathogen growth. CCP. Y. Critical limit: hot hold food above 60 degrees Celsius. Monitoring action: measure and record temperature of food every 2 hours using a STEM thermometer. Corrective action: if the food is below 60 degrees Celsius for than 2 hours, transfer food to another container and reheat to 74 degrees Celsius, then hot hold at 60 degrees Celsius. If the food is below 60 degrees Celsius for more than 2 hours, discard food. Step: serving. Hazard: biological, contamination from handlers. CCP. Y. Critical limit: use clean hands or sanitized utensils. Do not work when sick. Monitoring action: visual observation, hands washed properly and frequently. Do not allow sick employees to handle food. Corrective action: modify procedure, provide sanitized utensils, discard contaminated food, send sick workers home. 4. Food handler health and hygiene. This unit emphasizes that food handlers are a primary source of food contamination and that by following proper health and hygiene practices, all food handlers can help to reduce the risk of foodborne illness outbreaks. Learning outcomes. First, describe the importance of good health and hygiene habits for food handlers. Second, identify the steps in proper hand washing. Third, describe the appropriate use of gloves. Fourth, list good personal habits that could reduce the risk of foodborne illness. Fifth, explain the importance of not handling foods when sick. Food handlers are one of the 3 components in the cycle of transmission. so practicing good personal hygiene is one of the most important steps in the prevention of foodborne illness. Even if you are not displaying any symptoms of illness, you could still be a carrier, which means you could be carrying pathogens in or on your body. Frequent and proper hand washing is an important step in preventing the spread of foodborne illness and gastrointestinal disease. Always wash your hands before you begin handling food and after eating, smoking, sneezing, coughing, blowing your nose, using the toilet, touching your hair or face, handling garbage, or handling money. Fingernails should be kept well trimmed and cleaned using a clean and sanitized nail brush. Remove jewelry and nail polish. Cycle of transmission of contaminants. Environment, food handler, food. 4.1 Steps for proper hand washing. First, wet hands with warm water. Second, apply liquid soap and lather for at least 20 to 30 seconds. Third, scrub backs of hands, wrists, between all fingers and under nails. Fourth, rinse under running water, hands. Fifth, pointing down towards the drain. Sixth, dry with a paper towel. Seventh, turn off taps and open bathroom door using the paper towel. Disposable gloves can provide an extra barrier of protection between hands and food, but remember that gloves pick up bacteria just like your hands. Wash your hands thoroughly before putting on disposable gloves, and change them as often, and in the same circumstances, as you would wash your hands. Do not use latex gloves. Latex is a common allergen and can cause severe allergic reactions. The recommended materials for disposable gloves are nitrile, polyethylene or vinyl. 5. Receiving and storing food safely. In most food service operations, only a few people have the direct responsibility for receiving and storing food. However, it is important for everyone, regardless of their position, to understand the proper procedures in order to maintain overall food safety control and assist in identifying and preventing problems. Learning outcomes. First, explain the importance of using only approved sources for food. Second, list reasons why a product or shipment might be rejected. Third, list the proper procedures for receiving a food delivery. Fourth, list the order in which foods should be put away. Fifth, explain the FIFO principle. Sixth, describe safe procedures for storing food. 5.1 Receiving food. Only accept food shipments from approved sources, and check that the delivery vehicle is clean. Reject shipments if the vehicle is dirty or if there is evidence of pests. Ensure you have adequate storage space for food. Don't order more than you can use in a reasonable time. Ensure that chemicals have been stored separately from food and food containers on the vehicle. Check for spillage and leakage. Check that the refrigeration and freezer units on the vehicle are at the correct temperatures, at or below 4 degrees Celsius, 40 degrees Fahrenheit, for refrigeration units and at or below -18 degrees Celsius, 0 degrees Fahrenheit, for freezer units. Using a probe thermometer, check that the internal temperature of refrigerated food is at or below 4 degrees Celsius, 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and frozen food is at or below -18 degrees Celsius, 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Do not accept food that is spoiled, damaged, or past its best before date. Reject products with broken boxes, torn bags, open containers, dented cans, or strange odors. Received foods should be put away immediately in this order. First, potentially hazardous foods requiring refrigeration, meats, seafood, dairy, etc. Second, frozen foods. Third, less hazardous foods that require refrigeration, fresh, uncut fruits and vegetables, etc. Fourth, dry goods. 5.2 Storing food. Use the first in, first out, FIFO principle. Pull older stock to the front of the shelf and store the new stock behind. Note the code date on products, best before date, expiry date, use by date or production date, and rotate stock so that older stock is used before new stock. Discard expired products. Protect food from contamination by wrapping and covering it. Use only food-grade containers to store food. Do not reuse empty containers to store food. Make sure that all food is labeled with the product name and the date that it was received. Do not store food on the floor. All food should be stored at least 15 centimeters, 6 in, off of the floor. Always store raw animal foods on the bottom shelf in the cooler below ready-to-eat foods, any foods that will not be further cooked. 6. Preparing food safely. Foods that have the FATTOM conditions to support the growth of pathogens are potentially hazardous foods and require special care during the preparation stage. Steps need to be taken to avoid cross-contamination, and careful attention needs to be paid to time and temperature rules. Learning outcomes. First, describe proper procedures for thawing frozen foods. Second, explain methods to prevent cross-contamination when preparing foods. Third, explain the importance of cooking foods to the correct temperature. Fourth, demonstrate how to use a food thermometer. Fifth, describe safe procedures for hot holding foods. Sixth, explain the importance of proper cooling and methods for rapidly cooling foods. Seventh, describe proper procedures for reheating foods. 6.1 Thawing. Most bacteria will not grow in frozen foods, but they will begin to multiply again when food is thawed and left in the danger zone. There are 3 safe ways to thaw food. In the refrigerator, at or below 4 degrees Celsius, 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Large frozen items like a roast will take at least 24 hours for every 2.5 kilos. Even small amounts of frozen food require a full day to thaw in the refrigerator. In cold water, the frozen food must be in leak-proof, waterproof packaging. Submerge the food package in cold tap water, changing the water every 30 minutes as the food thaws. In a microwave oven may be used to thaw small quantities of food, but remember that microwave ovens do not thaw food evenly. Small quantities of food can be cooked from a frozen state, but they will take longer to cook than the recommended time for fully thawed foods. Always check that food has reached a safe internal temperature before ending the cooking step. Never thaw food at room temperature. 6.2 Preventing cross-contamination. To reduce the risk of cross-contamination during food preparation. First, always clean and sanitize cutting boards, utensils, and other food contact surfaces between uses. 2. Use separate cutting boards for potentially hazardous raw foods and ready-to-eat foods. Color-coded boards are a good idea. Third, keep raw foods away from cooked foods. Keep soiled dishes away from clean dishes. 6.3 Cooking to the correct temperature. The cooking step for many potentially hazardous foods is a critical control point. Cooking to the correct temperature is the critical limit, or the point at which pathogens will be killed. In order to be sure that foods have reached the critical limit temperature, always use a food thermometer to check the internal temperature of the food. Food may look cooked on the outside well before it has reached a high enough temperature to kill pathogens. Always use a food thermometer to ensure that foods have reached a safe temperature. A temperature of 74 degrees Celsius will ensure that pathogens have been killed. 6.4 How to use a food thermometer. Food thermometers should be calibrated frequently to ensure that they are reading temperatures correctly, and must be cleaned and sanitized after each use. Use where the coldest temperature is most likely, such as the thickest part of a plesser of meat or poultry, or the middle of a pot of soup. Make sure that the thermometer is not touching a bone and take the temperature in several places. Be aware of hot and cold spots on grills, stoves or ovens and measure food that is most likely to be colder. When microwaving foods, be aware that they will not cook evenly. Check temperatures in different parts of solid food and stir liquids for more accurate temperature readings. 6.5 Hot holding foods. Hot holding equipment such as chafing dishes, steam tables, crockpots, and rice cookers are specifically designed to keep food at a safe temperature between when it is cooked and when it is eaten. Hot holding units hold food at a temperature at or above 60 degrees Celsius, 140 degrees Fahrenheit. They are not designed to heat food to a safe temperature. Both the hot holding unit and the food must be preheated before the food is placed in the unit. 6.6 Cooling foods. Improper cooling is one of the leading causes of foodborne illness. In order to reduce the amount of time that food remains in the danger zone, hot food must be cooled from 60 degrees Celsius to 20 degrees Celsius, 140 degrees Fahrenheit to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, within 2 hours, and then cooled from 20 degrees Celsius to 4 degrees Celsius, 70 degrees Fahrenheit to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, within the next 4 hours. Some methods for rapidly cooling foods include Placing the container of hot food in an ice bath. Stirring with purpose, built ice wands or cooling wands. Dividing large portions into small portions and cooling in shallow metal pans in the cooler. 6.7 Reheating foods. Inadequate reheating for hot holding is one of the improper food handling practices that have caused foodborne illness outbreaks. Reheat food rapidly to a minimum of 74 degrees Celsius, 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Then hold at or above 60 degrees Celsius unless it is served immediately. 6.8 A Special case, poultry products. Campylobacter and Salmonella. Poultry products, both meat and eggs including turkey, duck, goose, and especially chicken products, deserve special mention when talking about microbes and preventing foodborne illness. Campylobacter and Salmonella cause the most cases of bacterial foodborne illness in Canada. They are first and second with respect to the number of foodborne illness cases they cause. More people are hospitalized because of Campylobacter and Salmonella than all the other foodborne illness-causing bacteria combined. Raw poultry is often contaminated with Salmonella and Campylobacter bacteria. In a study that tested several hundred skinless chicken breast samples from across Canada, Campylobacter was found 44% of the time and Salmonella 21% of the time. The same study also looked at processed chicken products, specifically raw and uncooked, frozen chicken nuggets. Salmonella was found on these products 28% of the time. While proper food and meat handling practices are presented throughout FOODSAFE Level 1, the following tips are especially important to prevent people from getting sick from Campylobacter and Salmonella in raw poultry. Make sure the poultry is packaged and stored in such a way that the raw juices cannot drip onto other foods. Never store raw poultry products above foods that are eaten raw, such as lettuce, or foods that won't be further cooked, such as bread. Keep poultry cold until just prior to preparation and cooking. Make sure your cooler is set at 4 degrees Celsius or colder and your freezer is set at -18 degrees Celsius or colder. Never rinse raw poultry before using it because the bacteria can spread everywhere the water splashes, creating even more of a food safety hazard. The raw poultry has already been washed and rinsed at the slaughterhouse. Use a separate cutting board for products that are ready to eat such as lettuce or cheese, and a different one for raw poultry and raw meat. Using different colored cutting boards will help people remember which board to use and will reduce the risk of cross-contamination. For example, use a green one for produce and a red one for poultry and meat. Always wash your hands after handling raw poultry and before you do anything else in the kitchen. Always wash and sanitize any utensils and work areas that were used for raw poultry before using them for anything else. Always cook poultry to at least 74 degrees Celsius or hotter, internal temperature. These temperatures will kill any Campylobacter and Salmonella found in raw poultry. Use a meat thermometer to measure the cooking temperature, don't just guess. The color of the meat or juices is not a good way to measure whether meat has been properly cooked. If you are stuffing a bird, make sure the stuffing is also cooked to 74 degrees Celsius or hotter. 6.9 Eggs. Handle with care. Eggs are a potentially hazardous food and can be contaminated with Salmonella. Salmonella is a major cause of foodborne illness and eggs are one of the most likely sources. You cannot tell by sight, smell or taste whether an egg is contaminated with Salmonella. Both the inside and outside of the egg can be contaminated, so handle eggs the same way you would handle raw poultry. The only way to kill Salmonella in eggs is to properly cook them. Cooking eggs or foods containing eggs to 74 degrees Celsius, 165 degrees Fahrenheit, or hotter will kill Salmonella. When an egg has been safely cooked, the yolk is hard, not runny. Safe handling of eggs. Receiving. Only buy graded eggs from an approved supplier. Only buy eggs that are clean, uncracked, and refrigerated. Never buy or use dirty or cracked eggs. Only buy and use eggs that have time left on the best before date. Don't use eggs that have expired. Storing. Always store eggs in a refrigerator at 4 degrees Celsius, 40 degrees Fahrenheit, or colder until just before you use them. Pooling eggs. Pooling eggs is the breaking and combining of multiple, more than one, eggs into a container. The pooled eggs can then be mixed together or remain unmixed. While only a small percentage of eggs are contaminated with salmonella, the pooling of eggs can spread contamination from just one egg to the entire batch of pooled eggs. For this reason, pooling of eggs is risky and must be done carefully. Cleaning and hygiene after handling eggs. Hands must be washed thoroughly for 20 to 30 seconds with soap and warm water immediately after handling eggs. Thoroughly wash and sanitize containers, equipment, dishes, utensils and food contact surfaces that held or touched uncooked eggs or foods containing eggs that have not yet been cooked, before using them again. 7. Serving food safely. Serving food includes such tasks as displaying food in coolers and self-serve units, table service, clearing and setting tables, delivering food off-site, and even sending leftovers home with guests. In this unit, we will look at ways to reduce the risk of food contamination when serving food. Learning outcomes. First, describe methods to reduce the risk of contamination in self-service and buffet situations. Second, list methods of dispensing and serving food safely. Third, describe proper procedures for clearing and setting tables. Fourth, give examples of service items that are meant to be used only once. Fifth, follow safe procedures when transporting food off premises for catering or home delivery. 7.1 Self-service and buffets. In self-service situations such as buffets and salad bars, food may be contaminated because of issues with time and temperature and through customer contact with the food. Some methods to reduce the risk in self-service situations include: ensure that food is placed into the self-service or display units only after both the food and the unit have been preheated or pre-chilled to a safe temperature. Use clean service utensils for each dish and make sure the handles don't touch the food. Post signs reminding guests not to mix service utensils between dishes. Use sneeze guards. Remind guests to use a clean, fresh plate when returning to the self-service line. Never add fresh food to food that has been sitting in the buffet table. Food that has been on a self-service table must not be reused. Children should be supervised by an adult when at the self-service line. Limit amount of displayed food to what can be used within 2 hours. 7.2 Serving food. Wash hands frequently when handling food. Use tongs to touch and serve food. The handles of the tongs should never come into contact with the food. Use proper scoops for ice. Never use glassware to scoop ice. Don't store the scoop in the ice. Store ice cream scoops in containers with cold running water, or, if used infrequently, wash after each use. Avoid touching surfaces that may touch food or a person's mouth. 7.3 Clearing and setting tables. Food that has been served but not eaten must be discarded. Use a clean, damp cloth or paper towel and a spray sanitizer to clean tables between uses. Table linens should be changed between each setting, and tables must be cleared completely after each use. Even if a guest only has a coffee and does not use the cutlery, the entire setting must be removed when the guest leaves. Glasses and cups should be inverted on clean placemats or saucers to reduce the risk of contamination. Handle glasses by their base, and cutlery by the handle when setting tables. If leaving tables set, cutlery should be wrapped to reduce the risk of contamination from dust and dirt. 7.4 Single service items. Single service items such as straws, paper cups, plastic cutlery or plastic, paper plates must be used only once and then discarded, no exceptions. 7.5 Taking away leftovers. When customers take home leftover food, they should be instructed, verbally and/or in writing, that the food should be consumed or refrigerated within 2 hours. If reheating, reheat to 74 degrees Celsius before eating. 7.6 Catering and delivery. Food that is being transported off premises must be covered and protected from contamination. The food must leave the premises and arrive at its destination at a safe temperature. Hot foods must be transported so the food is maintained at or above 60 degrees Celsius, 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Refrigerated foods must be transported so the food is maintained at or below 4 degrees Celsius, 40 degrees Fahrenheit. 8. Cleaning, sanitizing and pest control. In a culture of food safety, everyone in the establishment, regardless of their role, should be aware of the basic principles of cleaning, sanitizing and pest control. By understanding these principles, everyone can assist in identifying and rectifying possible problems. Learning outcomes. List the steps for proper dishwashing. List correct temperatures for manual and mechanical dishwashing. Describe how to check dishwasher temperatures and sanitizer levels. Explain the importance of following a sanitation plan. Identify signs of pest infestations. List ways to prevent pest infestations. 8.1 Cleaning and sanitizing. Cleaning and sanitizing are two separate steps. Cleaning with soap and water and rinsing well with clean water will remove surface dirt and grease, but it does not remove all harmful bacteria. Sanitizing eliminates or substantially reduces the number of harmful bacteria on a clean surface. Dishware and food contact surfaces such as counters, tables and cutting boards should be cleaned, then rinsed, and then sanitized. Understanding the basic principles of the dishwashing operation helps to reinforce the importance of sanitation and avoiding cross-contamination. There are two methods for cleaning dishware, manual and mechanical. Dishwashing, manual. For manual dishwashing, 3 separate sinks are recommended for washing, rinsing and sanitizing. A place to air dry the dishware is also required. First scraping. Use hot water and good friction with nylon brushes or pads. Soak flatware and utensils for 10 to 15 minutes in a bus pan of hot water and a commercial soaking chemical. Pre-soak dirty pots and pans. Second washing. Wash with a commercial grade detergent in 45 degrees Celsius, 113 degrees Fahrenheit, clean water. Change water frequently. Third rinsing. Rinse in clean hot water to remove detergent. Fourth sanitizing. Sanitize for 2 minutes in 28 milliliters, 1 ounce, commercial chlorine bleach per 4.5 L, 1 gallon, of water or use another approved sanitizer. Use chemical test strips to measure sanizer concentration. Fifth air drying. Drain boards should be clean and sanitized and be sloped for drainage. All dishes, pots and pans, cutlery and utensils should be dry and cool before storage. Never towel dry. Dishwashing, mechanical. There are 2 kinds of mechanical dishwashers. First, high-temperature dishwashers have heated wash and rinse cycles. Most high-temperature dishwashers have 2 temperature gauges, one for the wash cycle and one for the final rinse, sanitizing, cycle. The temperature of the wash cycle must reach at least 60 degrees Celsius, 140 degrees Fahrenheit. The temperature on the final rinse cycle must reach at least 82 degrees Celsius, 180 degrees Fahrenheit, and run for at least 10 seconds at this temperature. Second, low-temperature dishwashers have a heated wash temperature of at least 60 degrees Celsius, 140 degrees Fahrenheit, followed by a warm or cold rinse cycle with chemical sanitizer. The final rinse must have a concentration of 50 ppm chlorine or 12.5 ppm iodine, or follow the manufacturer's instructions. Glass washers operate at temperatures that are lower than mechanical dishwashers, 50 degrees Celsius to 60 degrees Celsius, 120 degrees Fahrenheit to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Chemical sanitizers are used instead of hot water. Glass washers will not remove dried-on sugar, cream or juice. Pre-soaking and scrubbing with a brush may be necessary. Dishwasher maintenance is critical to ensure that machines operate properly. Review and follow the manufacturer's instructions for changing water, cleaning scrap screens, removing and cleaning spray nozzles, and other necessary cleaning and maintenance. For all types of dishwashing, it is important that proper wash and rinse temperatures and sanitizing solution concentrations are maintained. First, to check high-temperature dishwashers, run the dishwasher. Check the temperature of the wash cycle. It must reach at least 60 degrees Celsius, 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Check the temperature of the rinse cycle. It must reach at least 82 degrees Celsius, 180 degrees Fahrenheit, and run for at least 10 seconds at this temperature. Second, to check low-temperature dishwashers, check the wash cycle. It should be between 50 degrees Celsius and 60 degrees Celsius, 122 degrees Fahrenheit to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, or follow manufacturer's instructions for the correct temperature. Check the residual sanitizer levels using sanitizer test papers. The final rinse chlorine residual sanitizer levels should be 50 ppm or higher. Follow the manufacturer's instructions and use appropriate chemical test strips. 8.2 Sanitation Plans. Food service establishments should have a sanitation plan in place that sets standards and expectations for sanitation in the premises. A sanitation plan has two components. First, a list of cleaning and sanitizing agents used in the premises, including which chemicals to use for each task, the concentration required for each chemical and task, and how to safely store the chemicals. Second, a cleaning schedule that specifies each item that needs to be cleaned, how it should be cleaned, who is responsible for cleaning it, and how frequently it should be cleaned. If your position in the food service establishment includes responsibility for cleaning tables, fixtures, equipment, walls, floors, or food contact surfaces, make sure that you are familiar with, and follow, your establishment's sanitation plan and, where appropriate, the manufacturer's instructions. In a culture of food safety, out of sight is definitely not out of mind. Remember that surfaces under cabinets, behind equipment and around waste containers also collect dirt and filth and can attract pests. Some of the many, out of sight, areas that must be cleaned regularly as part of a sanitation plan cleaning schedule include behind, under and on top of. Most food processing equipment used in food service establishments is intended to be dismantled so that each part can be cleaned and sanitized thoroughly. Some establishments may have equipment that is designed by the manufacturer to be cleaned in place, CIP. CIP refers to the cleaning practice of cleaning and sanitizing food processing equipment while it is still assembled. Only equipment that is specifically designed by the manufacturer to be cleaned in place should be cleaned and sanitized in this manner. 8.3 Wooden cutting boards. The use of wooden cutting boards in food service establishments is discouraged or prohibited in many jurisdictions. If your health authority permits the use of wooden cutting boards, they should be cleaned and sanitized as follows. Scrape off any loose food. Place the cutting board in a sink of hot, 45 degrees Celsius, 113 degrees Fahrenheit, water with a commercial detergent. Scrub the board with a stiff brush to remove food and grease. Rinse the cleaned board in clean, hot, 45 degrees Celsius, 113 degrees Fahrenheit, water. Soak the entire board for at least 2 minutes, use in a 200 ppm solution of bleach or other approved sanitizing solution. While the board is soaking in sanitizer, use a second, clean brush to work the solution into the board. Do not rinse the sanitizing solution off the board. Let it air dry. 8.4 Pest control. Rodents, insects and other pests carry pathogens that can be transmitted through their droppings, urine, and saliva, so it is very important to prevent pest infestations in food service establishments. Pest infestations don't happen overnight. Be aware of the warning signs of common pests. If you see any indication of a pest infestation, notify your supervisor immediately so that she can contact a pest control expert. Droppings and nesting materials indicate the presence of birds. Maggots and swarms of flies indicate a fly infestation. Recently hatched cockroaches leave brown, oval-shaped eggshell casings. Mice leave small, black, rice-shaped droppings. Rats leave brown, cigar-shaped droppings that are larger than mouse droppings. Pests will only go where they have access to food, water and shelter, so the best way to prevent pest infestations is to limit their access to the building and to take away the things they need to survive. Clean and sanitize food contact surfaces daily. This includes prep surfaces, grills, cooking surfaces, and countertops. Keep cooking equipment free of grease and dirt buildup. Clean underneath equipment and shelves. Store food and food utensils at least 15 centimeters off the floor. Keep screens over windows to keep birds and flies away. When storing food in dry storage, keep food in tightly sealed, food-grade containers. Dispose of garbage properly and don't put garbage near doorways. Stop dripping pipes and prevent pooling of water. 9. Premises requirements. Food service workers, even owners and managers, don't often have the luxury of designing an establishment from the ground up. However, an understanding of premises requirements and the safest way for food to flow through the kitchen, service, dishwashing and storage areas can help to build a culture of food safety in a food service establishment. Learning outcomes. List the 9 basic requirements for food service establishments. Describe how a kitchen should be organized to reduce the risk of food contamination. Describe the characteristics of safe food contact surfaces. Describe the key parts of an equipment maintenance program. 9.19 Basic requirements in a food service establishment. First, potable water. Potable water is water that is safe for human consumption, for eating, drinking, cooking and making ice. Second, adequate hot water supply. Hot water is necessary for proper dishwashing, hand washing, and cleaning. A food service establishment must have enough hot water to meet demands at its busiest times. Third, adequate cooler and freezer storage. Shelving in, walk-in coolers and freezers must be at least 15 centimeters off the ground and have adequate space to allow for air circulation. Maintain proper temperatures. Cool coolers at or below 4 degrees Celsius, 40 degrees Fahrenheit, freezers at or below -18 degrees Celsius, 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Fourth, adequate lighting. Brightly lit workspaces help food handlers see spills, dirt and signs of pests. Fifth, grease traps. Fats, oils and grease that go down the drain can clog plumbing and the public sewers. When a sewer line is plugged, sewage packs up, toilets don't flush, sinks don't drain, and floods can occur. Sixth, proper ventilation. Proper ventilation keeps premises free from odors, grease, smoke, heat and steam. Seventh, proper waste disposal. An establishment must have proper waste disposal procedures in place. Garbage attracts pests and can be a source of cross-contamination. Eighth, hand washing sinks. Food premises are required to have dedicated hand washing sinks that are easily accessed from all food preparation stations. The sinks must be equipped with liquid soap in a dispenser and single-use paper towels. Ninth, proper dishwashing facilities. A food service establishment must have dishwashing facilities that will handle its needs at its busiest times. The flow of food and dishes in a food service kitchen should ensure that clean dishes do not come into contact with dirty dishes, clean linens do not come into contact with soiled linens, and raw potentially hazardous foods do not come into contact with prepared and ready-to-eat foods. 9.2 Food contact surfaces. Food contact surfaces must be durable, non-toxic, non-absorbent, smooth, easy to clean, light-colored. 9.3 Preventative maintenance. In order to ensure the efficiency and durability of equipment in a food service establishment, a regular maintenance program should be in place. There are two parts to a preventative maintenance program. Ensuring that equipment is kept in good working order so that it is clean and free of grease build up and dust. Ensuring that equipment is operating according to the manufacturer's specifications. 9.4 Some important preventative maintenance measures are: seals on the doors of coolers and freezers should be clean, free of mold, and sealed tightly. Compressors on coolers and freezers should be clean, free of dust and grease, and have good air circulation around them. Ventilation systems should be cleaned regularly to prevent grease buildup. All temperature gauges should be regularly checked for accuracy. 9.5 Emergency situations. Emergency situations such as fire and smoke damage, flooding, power outages, and boil water advisories may compromise the safety of the food you serve. Such unplanned occurrences can affect your establishment's ability to keep the premises clean and sanitized and to properly store, prepare and serve food. Always contact your health authority before you continue to serve food during an emergency situation. Your public health officer will help you to determine if the food is safe to serve to customers. A. Canadian government agency responsibilities. In Canada, there are several different government agencies that are responsible for food safety. While there are some variations between the provinces and territories, the following table outlines which government agencies are responsible for food safety in different parts of the food industry. Local health authorities, municipal, city or provincial health departments. Food sold in retail stores. Food served in food service establishments. Food served in institutions such as hospitals and care homes. Food processing facilities that do not ship their products across provincial boundaries or export out of the country. Food storage facilities such as food warehouses. Transportation of food. Health Canada, First Nations health authorities. Food served on public conveyances such as ships and airplanes. Food prepared and served on First Nations and Inuit lands. Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Imported foods. Food processing facilities that ship their products across provincial boundaries or export out of the country. Provincial agriculture departments. Food grown on farms. B. Foodborne illness chart. Anisakis simplex. Infection. Signs: abdominal pain, vomiting, coughing. Incubation period: 12 hours to several days. Food involved: saltwater fish. Bacillus cereus, toxico-infection. Signs: nausea, abdominal pain, diarrhea, vomiting. Incubation period: up to 24 hours. Food involved: cereal products, rice, custards and sauces, meatloaf. Campylobacter jejuni, infection. Signs: diarrhea, sometimes bloody, severe abdominal pain, fever, anorexia, headache, vomiting. Incubation period: 2 to 5 days. Food involved: raw milk, poultry, beef liver, raw clams, contaminated water. Clostridium botulinum, intoxication. Signs: vertigo, double vision, difficulty swallowing, speaking and breathing, weak muscles, respiratory paralysis. Frequently fatal. Incubation period: 18 to 36 hours. Food involved: home canned low-acid food, garlic and oil mixtures, vacuum, packed fish, fermented fish eggs, fish, marine mammals. Clostridium perfringens, toxico-infection. Signs: abdominal pain, diarrhea. Incubation period: 8 to 22 hours. Food involved: cooked meat, poultry, gravy, sauces, soups. Cryptosporidium, infection. Signs: severe diarrhea, low-grade fever and severe intestinal distress. Incubation period: 1 to 12 days. Food involved: any food product that comes into contact with a contaminated person or contaminated water. Escherichia coli 00157, H7, E. coli, toxico-infection. Signs: severe abdominal pain, diarrhea, sometimes bloody, nausea, vomiting, fever, chills, headache, muscular pain, bloody urine. Incubation period: 24 to 72 hours. Food involved: soft unpasteurized cheese, contaminated water, any undercooked animal source foods, especially hamburger. Giardiasis lamblia, infection. Signs: abdominal pain, diarrhea, fever, cramps. Incubation period: 1 week. Food involved: water, raw vegetables and fruits. Hepatitis A, infection. Signs: fever, anorexia, nausea, abdominal pain, jaundice. Incubation period: 15 to 50 days. Food involved: shellfish, contaminated water, any food contaminated by the feces, urine or blood of infected humans and other primates. Listeria monocytogenes, infection. Signs: nausea, vomiting, stomach cramps, diarrhea, headache, constipation, fever. Incubation period: 1 to 70 days. Food involved: unpasteurized milk, soft cheeses, undercooked poultry, prepared meats, unwashed raw vegetables. Norovirus, infection. Signs: nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain. Incubation period: 24 to 72 hours. Food involved: contaminated water, food or food contact surfaces. C. Oysters and raw shellfish. Handle with care. Shellfish feed by filtering water and eating algae and other microorganisms, microbes, found in the water. Sometimes pathogens are in the water and get into shellfish when they are feeding. Some pathogens can grow and multiply in shellfish, especially as the temperature gets warmer. If someone then eats the contaminated shellfish without properly cooking them, they can get sick. Oysters are a type of shellfish that are commonly served raw or on the shell. Because oysters served raw are not cooked, keeping them cold is the main control step to keep them safe to eat. However, in 2015, a large outbreak of Vibrio parahemolyticus, known as VP, caused over 60 illnesses in people who had eaten raw oysters harvested in BC. This was the largest outbreak of VP ever recorded in Canada. VP can only grow when temperatures are above 10 degrees Celsius. The only way to prevent VP from growing in oysters is to keep them cold all the way through the food chain, from the ocean through to the customer's plate. While it's not known where along the food chain the 2015 oysters were temperature abused, it's important that everyone along that food chain does their part to ensure that oysters meant to be served raw are handled properly and kept cold. When you receive oysters or any other shellfish, just like raw meat or poultry, they must be refrigerated immediately. Because oysters are so sensitive to temperature changes, there are special conditions that also must be followed to keep them safe. Check the temperature of oysters when they arrive. If the ice has melted, or if the temperature is above 4 degrees Celsius, reject the shipment. It may already be contaminated. Do not accept oysters if there is no harvest tag on the shellfish bag. These oysters may have been harvested illegally or from closed harvest areas. Keep a written record of the dates on the harvest tags as they are being served. Keep harvest tags for 90 days after serving. If you are shucking oysters ahead of time, do it quickly, and put the oysters immediately back into the refrigerator until they are ready to be served. Restaurants that display oysters at an oyster bar should use ice on the bottom and on top of the oysters, and the oysters should be placed cup-side down. Serve oysters on a plate of ice, and only serve small batches 6 to 12 at a time. During bucket shuck oyster sales, customers might order 100 or more oysters for their group. Don't serve all the oysters at once, serve them in small batches. Once the group eats one small batch, bring the next fresh batch, so the oysters being served are always cold. Some jurisdictions require that establishments that serve raw oysters display a sign or have on their menu a food safety warning for customers that reads, "The consumption of raw oysters poses an increased risk of foodborne illness." A cooking step is needed to eliminate potential bacterial or viral contamination. Medical health officer. This warning gives customers the information they need to make an informed decision regarding the risk of eating raw oysters. D. Food thermometers types and calibration. One of the critical factors in controlling pathogens in food is controlling temperatures. Disease-causing microbes such as bacteria grow very slowly at low temperatures, multiply rapidly in mid-range temperatures, and are killed at high temperatures. For safety, perishable foods must be held at proper cold temperatures to inhibit bacterial growth or cooked to temperatures high enough to kill harmful microbes. It is essential to use a food thermometer when cooking meat, poultry, and egg products to prevent undercooking, and consequently, prevent foodborne illness. Many food handlers believe that visible indicators, such as color changes, can be used to determine if foods are cooked to a point where pathogens are killed. However, recent research has shown that color and texture indicators are unreliable. Food thermometer usage considerations. Digital thermocouple, 2 to 5 seconds. 1 centimeter or deeper. Gives fastest reading. Good for measuring temperatures of thick and thin foods. Not designed to remain in food while it's cooking. Check internal temperature of food near the end of cooking time. Can be calibrated. More costly. May be difficult for consumers to find in stores. Digital thermistor, 10 seconds. At least 1.5 centimeters deep. Gives a fast reading. Can measure temperature in thin and thick foods. Not designed to remain in food while it's cooking. Check internal temperature of food near the end of cooking time. Some models can be calibrated. Available in kitchen stores. Digital thermometer fork combination, 2 to 10 seconds, 5 to 7 centimeters deep. Can be used in most foods. Not designed to remain in food while it's cooking. Sensor in tine of fork must be fully inserted. Check internal temperature of food near the end of cooking time. Cannot be calibrated. Convenient for grilling. Food thermometer usage considerations. Digital thermocouple, 2 to 5 seconds. 1 centimeter or deeper. Gives fastest reading. Good for measuring temperatures of thick and thin foods. Not designed to remain in food while it's cooking. Check internal temperature of food near the end of cooking time. Can be calibrated. More costly. May be difficult for consumers to find in stores. Digital thermistor, 10 seconds. At least 1.5 centimeters deep. Gives a fast reading. Can measure temperature in thin and thick foods. Not designed to remain in food while it's cooking. Check internal temperature of food near the end of cooking time. Some models can be calibrated. Available in kitchen stores. Digital thermometer fork combination, 2 to 10 seconds, 5 to 7 centimeters deep. Can be used in most foods. Not designed to remain in food while it's cooking. Sensor in tine of fork must be fully inserted. Check internal temperature of food near the end of cooking time. Cannot be calibrated, convenient for grilling. Dial then safe, bimetal, 1 to 2 minutes, 5 to 7 centimeters deep. Can be used in roasts, casseroles, and soups. Not appropriate for thin foods. Can remain in food while it's cooking. Heat conduction of metal stem can cause false high reading. Some models can be calibrated. Dial instant read, bimetal, 15 to 20 seconds, 5 to 7 centimeters deep. Can be used in roasts, casseroles, and soups. Temperature is averaged along probe, from tip to 5 to 8 centimeters up the stem. Cannot measure thin foods unless inserted sideways. Not designed to remain in food while it is cooking. Used to check the internal temperature of a food at the end of cooking time. Some models can be calibrated. Readily available in stores. Calibrating a thermometer. There are two ways to check the accuracy of a food thermometer, using ice water or using boiling water. Many food thermometers have a calibration nut under the dial that can be adjusted. Check the package for instructions. Ice water. To use the ice water method, fill a large glass with finely crushed ice. Add clean tap water to the top of the ice and stir well. Immerse the food thermometer stem a minimum of 5 centimeters into the mixture, touching neither the sides nor the bottom of the glass. Wait a minimum of 30 seconds before adjusting. Without removing the stem from the ice, hold the adjusting nut under the head of the thermometer with a suitable tool and turn the head so the pointer reads 0 degrees Celsius, 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Boiling water. To use the boiling water method, bring a pot of clean tap water to a full rolling boil. Immerse the stem of a food thermometer in boiling water a minimum of 5 centimeters and wait at least 30 seconds. For ease in handling, the stem of the food thermometer can be placed through the clip section of the stem sheath and, holding the sheath horizontally, lowered into the boiling water. Without removing the stem from the pan, hold the adjusting nut under the head of the food thermometer with a suitable tool and turn the head so the thermometer reads 100 degrees Celsius, 212 degrees Fahrenheit. For true accuracy, distilled water must be used and the atmospheric pressure must be 1 atmosphere, 76 centimeters of mercury. A consumer using tap water in unknown atmospheric conditions would probably not measure water boiling at 100 degrees Celsius. Most likely it would boil as much as 3 degrees Celsius, lower. Remember, water boils at a lower temperature in a high altitude area, so it is best to add a couple of degrees for a margin of safety. Even if the food thermometer cannot be calibrated, it should still be checked for accuracy using either method. Any inaccuracies can be taken into consideration when using the food thermometer, or the food thermometer can be replaced. For example, water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. If the food thermometer reads 101 degrees Celsius in boiling water, it is reading 1 degree too high. Therefore 1 degree must be subtracted from the temperature displayed when taking a reading in food to find out the true temperature. In another example, for safety, ground beef patties must reach 74 degrees Celsius. If the thermometer is reading 1 degree too high, 1 degree would be added to the desired temperature, meaning hamburger patties must be cooked to 75 degrees Celsius. E. Sanitizing solutions. Common sanitizing solutions. First, manual dishwashing. Chlorine bleach, 200 ppm, approximately. 15 milliliters bleach, in 4.5 L water. Ladine, 25 ppm or follow manufacturer's directions. Quartz, 200 ppm or follow manufacturer's instructions. Second, mechanical dishwashing. Chlorine bleach, 50 ppm approximately. 5 milliliters bleach in 4.5 L water. Ladine, N.A. Quartz, N.A. Third, glass washing. Chlorine bleach, 50 ppm approximately. 5 milliliters bleach in 4.5 L water in the cold water cycle. 12.5 to 25 ppm or follow manufacturer's directions. Ladine, 12.5 to 25 ppm or follow manufacturer's directions. Quartz, N.A. Fourth, clean in place, CIP. Chlorine bleach, 200 ppm approximately. 15 ml bleach in 4.5 L water. Ladine, 12.5 to 25 ppm or follow manufacturer's directions. Quartz, 200 ppm or higher according to manufacturer's directions. Using sanitizers. Use a test kit or test papers to check sanitizer concentrations. Use freshly mixed bleach solutions for clean-in-place situations. Use regular, unscented bleach. Always review and follow manufacturer's directions for proper strength and applications. Store chemicals away from all food, either in a separate chemical storage area or in a locked cupboard. F. Best practice for preventing allergic reactions. All individuals in a food establishment play a role in preventing allergic reactions. The following are best practices that should be implemented. Management should develop and implement an allergy policy including procedures and make sure that it is clearly communicated to all staff identifying their roles and responsibilities. Ingredients may have several different names, and priority allergens should be clearly indicated in food plans and menus. Clear communication between the customer with a food allergy and restaurant staff is vital. To avoid mistakes when a customer asks about ingredients of dishes or safe foods, write down on paper the allergens to be avoided and follow the plan for identifying these ingredients at your establishment. If you cannot verify all ingredients with absolute certainty, advise the customer that you are not sure. Never guess. A customer with a food allergy is expecting to receive accurate information so that they can make an informed food choice. Eliminate all potential sources of cross-contamination. In the kitchen, ensure that all food surfaces are cleaned properly, using hot water and commercial detergent. Use a separate area, clean utensils, cookware and cutting boards when preparing food for an allergic customer. At the table, ensure that the tabletop, containers on the table and utensils are clean and contaminant-free before seating guests. Be vigilant. Cross-contamination of even the smallest amount of allergen residue is dangerous for allergic consumers. For example, taking an egg or nuts off the surface of a prepared salad does not make the food safe for consumption by a person with an egg or nut allergy. The salad must be prepared from scratch, ensuring that the ingredients have not been in contact with allergens. When preparing foods, consider the following. Be aware of all areas of the kitchen where cross-contamination can happen, including equipment such as mixers, blenders, deep fat fryers, small ovens, refrigerators and storage areas. Remember that pre-packaged foods, including spices and sauces, may have ingredients that contain allergens. For example, chocolate chips may contain tree nuts, dairy or peanuts. Read the entire labels of the products you are using and make sure that they are included in your food plan. Especially look for what allergens are present in the contains or may contain statements. Try to keep ingredients in their original packaging so that labels can be examined. When storing ingredients in separate containers, keep ingredient labels attached to the container so that these can be examined. Ingredients in pre-packaged food can change without warning. Be sure to examine labels every time an item is purchased and keep information updated. If your establishment maintains an ingredient book, make sure this is kept up to date. Be aware of any product recalls for foods that may be in your kitchen. Chefs can sign up for email alerts sent from the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, CFIA, and additional information is also available on the BC Centre for Disease Control's website and from major suppliers. When preparing food for a customer with a food allergy, make sure that you are not substituting one allergen for another allergen without consulting the customer, for example, substituting dairy milk for almond milk, tree nuts, or soy milk, which are also priority allergens. Keep this information clear in recipes so that ingredients can be identified. The safest option is to prepare meals for allergic customers from scratch using fresh ingredients, separate equipment, and offline, in a dedicated area where there is less risk of cross-contamination. You may wish to have simple options available that can easily be prepared to accommodate customers with a food allergy. For example, foil-wrapped chicken and baked potatoes with vegetables. The following items have a high risk of cross-contamination: food items purchased from bulk bins, food items without labels, food items produced on shared equipment, imported foods, for example, dates, spice mixtures, seasonings, chocolate bars and dry mixes. Do not use these when preparing food for allergic customers. Priority allergens and alternative names. The following is a partial list of alternative names for priority allergens. To become more familiar with priority allergens and the foods that contain them, visit http://foodallergycanada.ca/about-allergies/food-allergens/. Eggs, albumin, egg substitutes, globulin, Liverton, lysozyme, meringue, many products with ovo in the name. Milk, casein, curds, delactosed whey, lactate, whey. Mustard, Sinapis alba, Brassica hirta, Moench, canola protein, Dijon mustard. Peanuts, Arachidae, Arachis oil, beer nuts, cacahuete, kernels, nut meats, mandalonas, valencias. Seafood, all fish, crustaceans and shellfish. Sesame, beni, gingelly, seeds, sesamol, Sesamum indicum, sim, tahini, tahini till, vegetable oil. Soy, bean curd, tofu, edamame, glycine max, kananko, korodofu, miso, natto, nimame, okara, soya, soja, soy protein, vegetable protein, tempeh, TSF, TVP, yuba. Sulfites. Tree nuts, almonds, Brazil nuts, cashews, hazelnuts, filberts, hickory nuts, macadamia nuts, pecans, pine nuts, pignolias, pistachios, shea nuts or butter, walnuts. Wheat, atta, bulgur, couscous, durum, flour, farina, kamut, selton, semolina, spelt, farro, dinkel, triticale, Titicum aestivum, bran. What's in a label? If you are using pre-packaged foods, the ingredient label is a good source of information on allergen content. A label should list all ingredients. If you doubt that this is the case, do not take risks with allergy-related questions. Manufacturers may also include other information on a voluntary basis. Always read precautionary warnings, such as, may include peanuts. Be wary of statements which state a product is free from X. Make sure to read the entire label to verify this statement. If ingredients on labels, particularly those coming from other countries, appear to be incomplete or lacking information, be extra cautious. Your ability to make decisions about the presence of allergens is only as good as the information you have available, so don't take any risks. If you cannot verify all ingredients with absolute certainty, advise the customer that you are not sure. Never guess.